Hi. Okay, so today we're going to do a long graduated cut just to recap on what we've already learnt at college. Okay, so the headlock must be wet all over, cleanly washed, and then all sections need to be kept damp throughout the cutting process to ensure that the cut is accurate. So this is just a recap, and you can see that I've got my top box sectioned off there. So the long graduation that we're doing is a square layer, and there's various different ways that you'll learn to do this out in industry. But this is the way that we taught you at college. So the first section, if you remember, I'm going to do is I'm going to take a first section at the crown. So take a fine section, comb the rest of the hair out of the way, and you're going to cut it to where you think your guide needs to be. Now you need to make sure that you're not cutting it too short over the crown. So I'm going to pull it up to about there, holding my fingers straight and then just cutting off that section. There we go. So that now has been cut at 90 degrees, and that's going to form the basis of our long graduation. Okay, now what you can do after that is then take sections and work towards the front, taking horizontal sections, using that section as a guide and holding the hair up at 90 degrees to produce a square layer. Or sometimes in industry what they would do is they would take a middle section down that top section that you've just taken, and they would comb that up. So if I just turn my block to the side, so what they would do is they would then use a section that they've just done as a guide. So for example, my guide is there. Can you see how it's falling away? You probably won't be able to see it there. So you're going to comb it up, and you can do down this middle section, you can use your first cut as your guide to produce your first square on the top. Okay, so work towards the front using the previous part that you've just cut as your guide. Okay, what we tend to do in industry is we then tend to slightly over direct it back at the front to retain a bit of length. Okay, right, okay, so we've done that. So now that middle section should be nice and square. Go back over it and just check that it's square. Okay, now what you can do is then you could take sections vertically and hold it up to the section that you've done, but we're not going to do that. We're going to turn it around and do it like you've been doing it at college, but we've got that middle section as our guide. So take a horizontal section. Remember to keep your block really wet because they get quite knotty. And we should see when we hold it up that there's a gap in the middle. I don't know whether you can see that. So we're going to cut it to that because that is our guideline. Okay. What we then do is that section that we just cut, keep a little bit of that as our guide for the next section. So I've got taken quite a bit out of that section, but I've still got a guide there that I'm going to use moving forward. So then take another fine section, using the bit that you've previously just cut, just a fine section from it, comb it up, and you should be able to, when you comb it up, see your guide from your previous section that you've just cut, and then just tuck that off. It's really important that you use a good even tension to keep your cut accurate, but also to make sure that your sections are fine so you can see your guideline from the previous section that you've just cut. If you can't see your guideline, then that means that the section that you've just cut is too thick. Sorry, the section that you've just taken is too thick. Okay, so my next section, comb it up. My guide's there. It kind of falls away in the middle, and you're going to cut that square. Okay, again, take a section across that middle parting area, borrow a bit from the previous bit that you've just cut, and again comb it up nice and straight, looking for your guide, maintaining even tension. If you don't have even tension, then what will happen is the cut will be inaccurate. And this is going to be the basis of your cut. This is going to be from the majority of the guide that you're going to use. So it's important to keep good tension. So comb it right from the roots up and then cut. Okay, for these last couple of sections, what I'm going to do is I'm going to over direct it slightly backwards to try and retain a little bit of the length at the front. Okay, so I'm just pulling it ever so slightly back. You can see my guide there, and I'm going to cut to that section. And then the last bit on the front, just make sure my sections are neat. I don't have too much hair in my hand, because if you have too much hair in your hand, you'll find it difficult to work with. Combing it slightly back, you can see how I'm just over directing it slightly, and then there's my guide. I'm going to cut that off. Okay, so now when we cross check that the other way, we should find that it is square on the top, and this is going to produce the best part of our guideline. I'm just going over because taking the last wispy bits off. So I'm going to turn it to the side now, and hopefully you will be able to see that when I comb it up the top section, I'm taking quite a bit of it, so you can see is that that guideline is square, but it's just ever so slightly getting longer towards the front. And again, you just take any little bits off. Got a few little stray hairs. This is a brand new block, so it's molting at the moment. So I'm just cross checking it the opposite direction, just making sure that I've got nice chunky line. So even though we're doing long graduation, the cut that we're using is obviously club cutting. Okay, you do the same cut for a texturized look. You would use texturizing when you chip into the hair. So that now is, I don't know whether you can see that when I comb it up, is all nice and square. I'll just hold it a bit further down, and then you can see how it's quite chunky on the ends. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that top box. I'm going to keep the section that we've cut on our crown, and I'm going to comb that top box forward. Okay, so you can see instantly when I turn it round that it's cut quite a bit of length off at the front. And of course I forgot to mention at the beginning that you would have already done your one length cut prior, or your baseline prior to doing this. Okay, right, so what I've done now is my top box is here, combed it forward, combed all the hair nice and smooth. I'm just going to wet it again, so keep it moist and damp whilst you're working with it, so that the hair is even, it's cut at an even tension, so that you don't get longer bits, because hair when it's wet, what does it do? It stretches. So if it's not evenly dampened or wet, then you will find your cuts not accurate. Okay, so just wet that again. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work with vertical sections, very much like orange segments in a Terry's chocolate orange. So vertical means sections down. So we're going to work around the head using that top section as our guide to show, to keep the cut square. So if I take my first section down the middle, what we find when we comb it up is that hair down here will fall away. So I shall just take a section for you. So again, make sure that your sections are really nice and neat and clean. Then you'll find that your cut is a lot more accurate. So fine section, not too much. And what we're looking for is our guide. So we're not going to hold it like that, although that could be a form of graduation. What we're going to do is we're looking for our guide, but we're keeping it square. So we're pulling it up. So the hair is going to travel up to that top box that we've just done. So for example, can you see that that's my guide at the top box? Okay, but the hair here is staying straight and it's coming straight up. What you will find is that the hair down here is not long enough to come up that way. Don't make the mistake of trying to cut that. If you comb it up and it falls away, that's what it's supposed to do, because we're doing a square layer, yeah, so that the layers will fall away. If you're doing another form of graduation where you're leaving much more length around the head at the bottom, you would angle your hands and you would tip it like that to produce a longer angle of hair, and that keeps more weight around the perimeter of the hairstyle. However, today what we're doing is we're doing a square layer. So I've got my guide at the top, so my guide is there and all that is to come off. Okay, so this is what we call a square layer. So it's a long graduation, but the layers are square. So for example, if we tip the block on its head, we would find that it was almost like a box. So again, I'm working down that section, but what I'm going to find is that when I pull that up to that top section, that some of the hair is going to fall away. So I'm not going to be cutting it all. So comb it up, nice and square. So that line along the top continues from the front like that. Okay. So I'll just take another little bit and we'll comb it up, and I think this will be where it starts to fall away. Can you see it fall away there? I'll just do that again so you can see that at the bottom you're going to be allowing that hair to fall away. So comb it right up. Can you see it falling away? And then you're just going to cut that square. So what this does is it produces some layers in the hair, but it's quite a soft look. Okay, so the middle bit there is now done. That middle section as a guide again. So now we're going to move to the section here and we're going to work. Imagine when you tap your top Cadbury's chocolate orange and it breaks up into segments. That's the way that we're working. So comb your sections out of the way and you're going to comb it up again to the square and you're going to cut that off. Okay, down that section again and you're going to come up. Right, so obviously I'm working at a different angle. I'm working so that you can see what you're doing, what I'm doing. However, the cut is still the same from, you know, I'm stood at the side of my client here. Okay, so again, another section. And each section that you take, you always borrow a bit from the previous section as your guide. Okay, so last bit on this back section, and then I'll move the block to the side. Okay, so we're going to come up. There's my guide. I don't know whether you can see that, and that's coming off there. Allow this to fall away. Of course, it's nice and square. It's coming all up to that top line, and then the hair will fall away. Okay, so I'll turn it round so that you can see what I'm doing from the front now. So I've done all that back section. So now, depending on where your client's parting is going to be, let's think that this one, the parting is going to be in the middle. So the top box is done. So I'm just going to part that just so that you can see easily. I'm going to work on one side of the head at once. Okay, so we've not done the back at this side, we've just done the back here. So I've done all the back section at 90 degrees on this side. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to wet it again a little bit. We're now going to start on the side. So it's the same idea. We're not holding it at an angle like this. The hair has to come up at 90 degrees. Yeah, so everything comes up to that line that we created before. So we've got our guide on the top, you can see that there. Pull it up and square. Okay. Square, allow the hair to fall away at the sides. So these bits here are not going to travel all the way up. Again, this side up straight, 90 degrees to the top, and it's square on the top. Take it all up. Get a nice chunky line at the top. We don't want to see it going off at an angle like that. Just nice and square. And then last section, I'm just going to pull this slightly back. Remember we did this at the front, so I'm just going to over direct this slightly back just to retain the length around the front. And again, 90 degrees. Allow the hair to pull up from the side sections by the ears, and what you will find is that it will fall away. Okay. Right, let's just wet that down again. So that's one side completely finished apart from cross-checking. Now you do exactly the same on the other side. So just let me comb this. You would do exactly the same technique at the other side. I'm just going to check that front section just because it was quite wet. Right, and I'm cross-checking my cut. Okay, right, so all that section's done. Now what we should find now is if we turned it and we cross-checked it, that when we pulled it up to the top section at the top, it should all be nice and square at that top section. Can you see? It's all coming up to a square line. Just any little wispy bits, take them off. Okay, so then you would move to the other side. So I'll turn it to the side, this side, okay? Again, vertical sections down the back, and I'm going to work quite quickly here. So I've got my guide still at the top, vertical sections, I'm pulling it up to 90 degrees and allowing that hair at the base of the neck to fall away. This keeps the length and the thickness at the base of the hair, or the perimeter of the hair. So all up to 90 degrees. Again, keep the hair wet whilst you're working. And again, I'm just doing it at this angle so that you can see what I'm doing. So 90 degrees. Ooh. Stay still. It's always good when you're working with your dining table. Up to 90 degrees and take those off. Okay. Another section here. Again, up to 90 degrees. So you've got your guide at the top there. So everything comes to that angle. And then if I turn it to the front at this side, so you can see how we're doing it at the sides, exactly the same as the other side. So taking that section up to the top. Remember, I've parted this in the middle, but obviously it would depend where your client's parting was going to be. So again, up nice and square. making sure that you're really getting some good tension on that hair, and that you're combing all the roots nice and smooth to prevent it from being uneven, the cut. Just going to wet that side a little bit. So again, up to 90 degrees, I'm pulling it right up to that top section. So 90 degrees there. There. And then this last front section, again, I'm just going to over direct it back. So pull it back just ever so slightly, and this retains some of the length at the front. And again, we're at 90 degrees at the top, pulling up 90 degrees to the top. Obviously, the angle here at the sides, at the bottom by the ear, is a greater angle than 90 degrees because it's having to travel all the way up from there up to the top. But we're going for the cut a square, which is 90 degrees on the top. Okay, so all that's done. So I'll cross check that side now, just make sure that there are no long bits. And then what we would do is we would do shaping around the face then, and checking your baseline that you've not cut into it and things. So I'll just take a section there and pull this up to the top, and hopefully we should end up with a square. Yeah, so there's a few little wispy bits there. Take these bits up as well into the cut, making sure that it's accurate. Yeah. Okay. And that's it. So I hope that's recapped how you do a long graduation. I'm then going to do one on a uniform layer. Okay, but I'm going to just have a break before I do that. Don't like being on the camera, but it's the new normal, whatever that is. So I hope you can have a go at that, and you can remember how we did that, so that you're confident when you come back into college that you can have a go at that. Good luck. Thank you.